Shalom family, hello, welcome back, welcome back. So Deuteronomy 31, Moses is saying his last words, he's saying his goodbyes. 40 years in the wilderness. It's a very important time. All of those who were born and raised and still ingrained in Egypt couldn't get it out of their system, perished in the wilderness. Selah. Anyway, let me just crack on. Right, and Moses went on speaking these words to all Israel, and he said to them, I am 120 years old this day. I can no more go out and come in. And the Lord and the Father has said to me, you shall not go over this Jordan. So Moses is not allowed in the kingdom. Why? We know why. I'll leave you in suspense if you don't know, because you have to read. But for those who know, we know. Same as Aaron. Aaron died up on the mountain. He was stripped of his priestly garment and it was handed down to his son, and his son had to take over. Miriam died before that. We all know what Miriam went through. Poor girl. But where are they today? Where are they today? Loads of people in this book made so many mistakes. Disappointed the Father, sinned against the Father. But what was most important? They were still the beloved. They still had their own personal relationship. They had a job to do. And even though they slipped, they fell, they stumbled along the way. Some people, it took longer for them to do their job, their task. From all the pitfalls, all the snares. But they got there in the end. Samson, David, all these kind of people. What's most important? They stayed with the Father. They had their own relationship. They would seek him and inquire with him. He was here, right here with them, right here. And up here. After all, we are only human, but we try to be better. The Father, your Elohim, will himself go over before you, and he will destroy these nations from before you, and you shall possess them. And Joshua shall go over before you, as the Father has said. And the Father will do to them as he did to Sihon king, and Og, and the kings of the Amorites, and to their land. And he will destroy them. You see, as I've spoken before, like, these things have been misinterpreted by people who thought this book was about them. They thought they could just go around conquering and blah, blah, blah. But, these are God's decisions. God decides, the Most High decides. And he decides who lives and dies and who decides to get wiped out. And he has his reasons. Because people be doing abominable things, which is why he tells us not to mix with them and blah, 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 and such, and take up none of their ways. And a lot of these nations who were greater, stronger, more powerful than Israel They had to go. They died. You live by the sword, and you die by the sword. He who leads into captivity must go into captivity. If you understand the beginning, you have a much clearer understanding of the end. You will understand Jesus. And the Father will give them over to you, and you shall do to them according to all the commandments which I have commanded you. And the Father will give them over to you, and you shall do to them according to all the commandments which I have commanded you. And the Father will give them over to you. If you ain't been reading, which a lot of you haven't read, that sounds really bad, and it's like you get angry and you go all head up. But this is for, basically, you read Deuteronomy, just read it. This is why I ask you the question. Think about where you want to go. Make your decision. Because in this law, the statutes and commandments, it's about treating people well, respectfully, not cruel. Where do you want to go? Be strong, courageous, and firm. Fear not, nor be in terror before them. For it is the Father, your Elohim, who goes with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. Be strong, courageous, and firm. Fear not, be nor in terror. And Moses called Joshua and said to him in the sight of all Israel, be strong, courageous, and firm, for you shall go with this people into the land which the Father has sworn to your fathers to give them, and you shall cause them to possess it. It is the Father who goes before you. He will march with you. He will not fail you, nor let you go or forsake you. Let there be no cowardice or flinching, but fear not, neither become broken in spirit, depressed, dismayed, or unnerved with alarm. I only need to say that once. You know how I love repeating these things, but I only need to say that once. But I will repeat this. Let there be no cowardice. There's still a lot of believers out there who don't hear that. And Moses wrote this law and delivered it to the Levitical priests who carried the ark of the covenant, and to all the elders of Israel. And Moses commanded them at the end of every 7 years, at the set time of the year, to release the debtors from their debts at the Feast of Booths, when all Israel comes to appear before the Father in the place which he chooses. For his sanctuary, you shall read this law before all Israel in their hearing. Assemble the people, men, women, children, the stranger and the sojourner within your towns, that they may hear and learn reverently to fear the Father and be watchful to do all the words of his law, and that their children who have not known it may hear and learn reverently to fear the Father, as long as you live in the land which you go over the Jordan to possess. And the children, bringing up children, whole new generation, Some people are already there. People who have been in this book, known who they are for coming up to a decade or more, raising their children in the way. But when we get home, it's a whole different situation, because I'm sure a lot of these people, as their children are becoming teenagers, they're right in the middle between their kids and the world, and they're desperately trying to keep their kids out of this world, trying to keep them away from the Babylonian wine. And it's something that makes me feel grateful that I don't have children, because I would be in despair. I'd be in bits right now if I had children coming of age, having to compete with the world. Sure, I'd be in bits. And they would hate me. They would hate me. And their children who have not known it may hear and learn reverently to fear the Father, your Elohim, as long as you live in the land which you go over to the Jordan to possess. And the Father said to Moses, behold, your days are nearing when you must die. It's written here, guys. For some of us, it's there as well. Our days are nearing when we must die. A lot of people forget this. Call Joshua and present yourselves at the tent of meeting, that I may give you his charge. And Moses and Joshua went to present themselves at the tent of meeting. And the Father appeared in the tent in a pillar of cloud, and the pillar of cloud stood over the door of the tent. And the Father said to Moses, behold, you shall sleep with your fathers, and this people will rise up and play the harlot after strange gods of the land, where they go to be among them. And they will forsake me and break my covenant, which I have made with them. He already knows. The beginning all the way to the end. He already knows. And he told us exactly what's going to happen. But you know, as the generations go along, everyone thinks, oh, it's nonsense, it's a fairy tale. And people become men of Belial and get confident in themselves, as I read to you yesterday in the last chapter. Beware lest there be among you a man or a woman or a family or a child, a family or tribe, whose mind or heart turns away from this, to serve other gods of these nations. Lest there should be among you poison root that bears gall and wormwood, and lest when he hears the words of this curse and oath, he flatters and congratulates himself in his mind and his heart, saying, I shall have peace and safety. That's why we keep this thing going. Children, men, fathers and sons, mothers and daughters. We keep this going. We keep it going. We tell them our tales, our testimonies, to make them understand how the Father's working in our lives. You'll never understand until you start this walk. None of this makes sense to you until you start this walk. Then my anger will be kindled against them in that day. I will forsake them and hide my face from them, and they shall be devoured, and many evils and troubles shall befall them, so that they will say in that day, have not these evils come upon us, because our Elohim is not among us. And I will surely hide my face in that day because all the evil which they have done in turning to other gods. And write this song for yourselves and teach it to the Israelites. Put it in their mouths, that this song may be a witness for me against the Israelites. For when I have brought them into the land which I swore to their fathers, a land flowing with milk and honey, and they have eaten and filled themselves and become fat, then they will turn to other gods and serve them and despise and scorn me and break my covenant. That was mentioned earlier on, is it Deuteronomy 4? And he said, look, you're going to be prospering, you're going to be fat, you're going to eat, drink, and be merry, and don't forget me. And, you know, ay, ay, ay. Flowing milk and honey and fill themselves and become fat, then they will turn to other gods and serve them and despise and scorn me and break my covenant. And when many evils and troubles have befallen them, this sacred song will confront them as a witness, for it will never be forgotten from the mouths of their descendants. For I know their strong desire and their purposes which they are forming, even now, before I have brought them into the land which I swore to give them. Moses wrote this song the same day and taught it to the Israelites. And the Father charged Joshua, son of Nun, be strong, courageous, and firm, for you shall bring the Israelites into the land which I have sworn to give them, and I will be with you. And when Moses had finished writing the words of this law in a book to the very end, he commanded the Levites who carried the Ark of the Covenant, take this book of the law and put it by the side of the Ark of the Covenant, that it may be there for a witness against you. For I know your rebellion and stubbornness. Behold, while I am yet alive with you today, you have been rebellious against the Father, and how much more after my death. Gather to me all the elders of your tribes and your officers, that I may speak these words in their ears, and call heaven and earth to witness against them. For I know that after my death you will utterly corrupt yourselves and turn aside from the way which I have commanded you. And you see, after Christ's death as well, and the apostles, the warning was given as well. After my death, what's going to happen? As soon as I'm gone, poison sets in. A poison root. For I know after my death you will utterly corrupt yourself and turn aside from the way which I have commanded you, and evil will befall you in the latter days. Because you will do what is evil in the sight of the Father, to provoke him to anger through the work of your hands. And Moses spoke in the hearing of all the congregation of Yasharel all the words of this song until they were ended. Give ear, O heavens, and I, Moses, will speak, and let the earth hear the words of my mouth. My message shall drop as the rain, my speech shall distill as the dew, as the light rain upon the tender grass, and as the showers upon the earth. For I will proclaim the name and presence of the Father. Concede and ascribe greatness to our Elohim. He is the rock. His work is perfect, for all his ways are law and justice. An Elohim of faithfulness, without breach or deviation. Just and right is he. They, Yasharel, have spoiled themselves. They are not sons to him, and that is their blemish. a perverse and crooked generation. Do thus repay the Father, you foolish and senseless people. Is not he your Father who acquired you for his own, who made and established you as a nation? Remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations. Ask your father and he will show you, your elders and they will tell you. When the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the children of men, he set bounds of the peoples according to the number of the Israelites. For the Father's portion is his people, Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. He found him in a desert land, in a howling void of wilderness. He kept circling around him. He scanned him penetratingly. He kept him as the pupil of his eye. Sorry. As an eagle stirs up her nest that flutters over her young, he spread abroad his wings, and he took them. He bore them as his pinions. So the Father alone led him, and he was not foreign. He was no foreign God with him. He made Israel ride in the high places of the earth, and he ate the increase of the field, and he made him suck honey out of the rock, and oil out of the flinty rock, butter and curds of the herd, and milk of the flock, with fat of lambs and rams of the breed of Bashan, and he-goats with the finest of the wheat, and you drank wine of the blood of the grape. But Jeshurun, Israel, grew fat and kicked. You became fat, you grew thick, you were gorged and sleek. Then he forsook Yah, who made him, and forsook him, and despised the rock of his salvation. They provoked him to jealousy with strange gods. With abominations they provoked him to anger. They sacrificed to demons, not to God, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods lately come up, whom your fathers never knew or feared. Of the rock who bore you, you were unmindful. You forgot the God who travailed in your birth. And the Father saw it, and he spurned and rejected them out of indignation with his sons and his daughters. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end will be. For they are a perverse generation, children in whom is no faithfulness. They have moved me to jealousy with what is not God. They have angered me with their idols, so I will remove them to jealousy with those who are not a people. I will anger them with a foolish nation. For a fire is kindled in my anger, and it burns to the depths of Sheol, devours the earth with its increase, and sets on fire a foundation of the mountains. I will heap evils upon them. I will spend my arrows upon them. They shall be wasted with hunger and devoured with burning heat and poisonous pestilence, and the teeth of beasts will I send against them, with the poison of crawling things of the dust. From without the sword shall bereave, and in the chambers shall be terror, destroying both young man and virgin, the suckling child with the man of grey hairs. Deuteronomy 28:50. I said I would scatter them afar, and I have made the remembrance of them to cease from among all men. I had not feared the provocation of the foe, lest their enemies misconstrue it, and lest they should say, our own hands has prevailed. All this was not the work of the Father. They did this. not the Most High. This is why, you know, you just gotta submit, and you gotta admit slavery was our fault. It was declared, it was decreed, we agreed to this contract. That's why I just let it all go. But they didn't have to be that wicked. They didn't have to be that cruel. It went too far. That scripture. I had not feared the provocation of the foe, lest their enemies misconstrue it, and lest they should say, our own hand has prevailed. All this was not the work of the Father. For they are a nation void of counsel, and there is no understanding in them. Oh, they were wise, and would see through this present triumph to their ultimate fate. How could one have chased 1,000 and two put 10,000 to flight, except their rock had sold them, and the Father had delivered them up? For their rock is not like our rock. Even our enemies themselves judge this. For their vine comes from the vine of Sodom, and from the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are grapes of poisonous gall. Their clusters are bitter. Their wine is the furious venom of serpents, and the pitiless poison of vipers. It is not laid up in store with me, sealed up in my treasuries. The whole world's crying out. Everyone can see now what the world is getting to. We're getting to that point now. A boiling point. We can see it. But someone else is going to try and step in as a savior. Or something else. AI. All hail AI. You can hear it. You can see it building up. Yes, you know. You've been watching it. All the declarations, all the promises of a better world under AI. When really it's just another way for them to make millions and billions and put you in subjection. Put you under the yoke. Which there is no freedom from, there is no turning back. It's already happening. AI systems are already embedded in everything. They just haven't gone public yet. People... Vengeance is mine, and recompense in the time when their foot shall slide. For the day of their disaster is at hand, and their doom comes speedily. For the Father will revoke sentence for his people and relent for his servants' sake, when he sees that their power is gone and none remains, whether bond or free. For the Father will revoke sentence for his people and relent for his servants' sake, when he sees that their power is gone and none remains, whether bond or free. He will say, where are their gods? The rock in which they took refuge, who ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their drink offering. Let them rise up and help you. Let them be your protection. See now that I am he, and there is no God besides me. I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal, and there is none who can deliver out of my hand. For I lift up my hand to heaven and swear, as I live forever, if I whet my lightning sword, and my hand takes hold on judgment, I will wreak vengeance on my foes and recompense those who hate me. I will make my arrows drunk with blood, and my sword shall devour flesh with the blood of the slain and the captives, from the long-haired heads of the foe. Rejoice with his people, O you nations. Rejoice with his people, O you nations. This is one of my notable verses. For he avenges the blood of his servants, and vengeance he inflicts on his foes, and clears guilt from the land of his people. Rejoice with his people, O you nations, for he avenges the blood of his servants, and vengeance he inflicts on his foes, and clears guilt from the land of his people. And Moses came and spoke all the words of this song in the ears of the people, he and Hoshea, Joshua son of Nun. And Moses had finished speaking all these words to all Israel, and he said to them, set your minds and hearts on all the words which I commanded you this day, that you may command them to your children, that they may be watchful to do all the words of this law. For it is not an empty and worthless trifle for you. It is your very life. If only our parents and our grandparents knew. If only they knew. But by it you shall live long in the land you are going over the Jordan to possess. And the Father said to Moses that same day, get up into this mountain of the Abarim, Mount Nebo, which is in the land of Moab, opposite Jericho, and look at the land of Canaan, which I gave to the Israelites for a possession, and die on the mountain which you ascend, and be gathered to your people, as Aaron your brother died on Mount Hor, and was gathered to his people. Go and die, yeah, go and die, your time is ready. Just as your brother did, go up to the mountain, go and die, stretch out your feet. Because you broke faith with me in the midst of the Israelites at the waters of Meribah, Kadesh, in the wilderness of Zin. And because you did not set me apart as holy in the midst of the Israelites. For you shall see the land opposite you at a distance, but you shall not go there into the land which I gave to the Israelites. Your chapter is done. Your work is done. Okay, I believe I'll leave that there, but finish on. You're welcome to finish 33, 34, and then that's the end of Deuteronomy, and then it's on to Joshua. Really good stuff. There's a lot in there. Read between the lines. There's so much in there for us. There's so much in there for us. Even to this day, to us who are living in this day. Enjoy your Sabbath. I might do... Yeah, I think I'll be back tomorrow. Alright, good night, folks.